And so with that, I think we're ready to get started. You ready for us, Nicole?
Oh, thanks, Kimmy. Hi, everybody, and thank you again for joining us today. Again, my name is Nicole Ronchetti. I am your Strategic Account Manager here at DSD. Hopefully, we've already met thus far. If we have not met, my contact information will be up at the end of the webinar presentation today. So, feel free after this to reach out. Just quickly going over our agenda. It's going to be a pretty quick and easy agenda to talk about. I'm going to do a quick overview of us and our team, and then Chris and I are going to show you some various different features of 23R1. And we will hold some time at the end for Q&A, but as Kimberly mentioned before, feel free to put questions or comments, anything you want in the chat as we move along, and we'll try to address those as we move along. Or again, we'll have that time at the end to address those questions as well. Quick overview of our team. I love this slide, and I really love looking at this slide because when I think back to our team, probably, even just a few years ago, our team, just continues to grow and grow, and we keep adding really valuable members who have helped us grow in supporting all of our clients and, providing more and more knowledge to the team. So this is our entire team of folks that we have. Again, you'll see myself and Chris Joko there, who are going to be presenting today, as well as our various other team members. Hopefully you've come into contact with some of these people, and at least this will also be able to put some faces to those names as well. We're going to be going over, as Kimmy mentioned, a lot of the different features of the new version. I will say that we're definitely not going to cover all of the features of the new version in this one phone call. I think, going through the complete list of new features, I think that list is probably about a 260-page document. So we're going to go over a lot of the different features that we feel like is going to be useful to many of you who are joining us today. But obviously, Acumatica is continually making various different improvements to various different areas within the system, various different modules. So we tried to cover as much as we can in this call. And hopefully, obviously, if, we don't touch on anything super in depth, or, you might have heard something else or something mentioned and you want more information about that, you'll certainly be able to reach out to us to ask for more information afterwards. Acumatica is doing a lot with increasing usability, with finding different, improving the user interface to show things like tooltips so that people can have more information on what a particular field is for, or what a particular item on the screen is for. So they're also improving the user interface to show different notifications, error reporting, things like that, making it overall easier for people to understand what they're looking at in a screen. So we're going to go over some of those today as well. A lot of these features we're actually really excited about, things like allowing users to adjust the system's default logout time in their preferences. We'll show a little bit of that later on. The tooltips, various different improvements that they've made to the CRM with tracking your pipeline, seeing those screens. And there's also additional things that they've added as far as archiving different documents and things like that. So again, we're going to try to cover as much of those today as possible, but most certainly, again, reach out to us after this call if there's stuff that you want to dive into further. And again, Acumatica is just really continually improving things like streamlining the AP process by making the export process of ACH payments much easier. Chris is going to be showing you a little bit of that today. Enabling additional workflow capabilities, sending emails and sharing files with internal and external contacts without leaving Acumatica. These are all things that, you know, to some degree, Acumatica has always done with doing things like ACH payments and email notifications and things like that. But again, they're continually adding features to each of those different areas to continually make it easier to work with and easier for everyone to use. And again, there are some industry-focused functionality changes as well. So whether it be things for contractors and service organizations where they're making improvements to project accounting reports and some of the functionalities there, or within manufacturing by adding different side panels to access different information for manufacturers, or even just some of the distribution, retail, and commerce enhancements like the mixed order capabilities that Chris is going to go over as well. Those are things where Acumatica looks at each of those particular industries and tries to continually enhance and improve the product to better suit those needs of those businesses. So I'm going to turn it over here to Chris in a second. Chris, are you ready for your demonstration?
I'm ready. All right, give me 1 sec here. All right, team, DSD team, if you can see my screen, can you just let me know and let me know if sound is good?
Yep.
All right, perfect. Well, you know, like Nicole mentioned, Acumatica jam packs a lot of updates to every single major release that they do. And since they do 2 major releases a year, you know, 2023 R1 is a very exciting time because there's a lot of things that they may be adding to the system. And so when we were putting this webinar together, we wanted to kind of focus on some highlighted things that we think are pretty much things that we think our client base can utilize. And so the first thing I'm going to start with are some updates to CRM. So if you don't have the CRM module, or you know, it's something that you've been looking for in the future, you know, definitely take a look at some of these features that are now available in 23R1. And so the first thing I'm going to start with is something that is really exciting to me, is just kind of the updates to our task management. A little known fact is Acumatica does work great as a collaboration tool. You know, I can assign tasks to Nicole, I can assign tasks to different members of my team and communicate within Acumatica. And with those tasks, I'm able to actually relate them to different things within the system. So if I had an opportunity that, you know, maybe we got a request to do some work, well, I can easily come in and create a task for another person in my company. And so in this case, if I needed to ask you know, my teammate in my fictional Chase manufacturing company here, I want to go ahead and ask one of my teammates to review the production process, right? So I'm going to say, please review production process for new manufacturing tools, right? And so I can come in here, I could put a date, you know, I want them to start looking at this today, but I want to follow up by Monday, right? And so now I can come in here and I can, you know, assign this to somebody. And in my case, I'm going to go ahead and assign this to Layla. And I can also opt to have reminders put in there. I could say, hey, go ahead and remind her at a particular time. And then I could say, you know what, this is in relation to a customer. So some of the things that they've changed here make it way easier. We've always been able to do tasks, but the way that they've updated this makes it way easier for us to do so. And so now I'm going to just say, hey, this is in relation to Alta Ace, my customer. Maybe there's a specific project we're working on. I can deem that this is high priority. And then now I can go ahead and put this into a red category. Now, once I've put this task together, you know what? I'm going to jump over and log in as Layla. And so in this particular area on my red browser window here, I'm logged in as Layla. And if I go ahead and refresh my tasks, I'm going to go ahead and see a brand new task to go ahead and report, review the production process. So if I come into my task as Layla, now I'm able to go ahead and see, oh, what do I need to do? Oh, cool. I've already gone ahead and reviewed this. So let me go ahead and put a note. And I'm just going to generate a note here and just say that everything is all good. Right? So I put that note in there. I could say, hey, maybe I'm looking at a particular manufacturing order, whatever the case may be. I can now use that activity and then I can mark it complete, or I can mark it to complete and follow up. So again, if for those of you that have not been using Acumatica's activities and tasks as a collaboration tool, it might be something that you guys want to start looking at, because it is definitely a nice way to be able to communicate with all of your teammates within Acumatica. Another feature that has been enhanced within our kind of, overall arching system is our approval process. And so in the past, users have always asked me in demos, during implementations, well, what if I can't approve a document at that time? So in some cases here, let me go ahead and log in as Regina. I entered a purchase order for $6,000. I need to order some new computers for the office. Well, I've already got my first level approval from my finance team. So I got that approval already. And now Michael, who's my executive, needs to go ahead and approve this. Well, in this scenario here, Michael decided to go ahead and take a vacation, or he doesn't know enough about the situation to actually approve this. So in this case here, we can now delegate or reassign approvals to another user within the system. So if I log in as Michael, so I'm going to come over here and log in as Michael, I see that I have this approval in my approval listing. I'm going to go ahead and open this up, and I'm going to say, okay, Regina, I don't know anything about you wanting to buy computers, but I know Maxwell does, Max Baker does. So you know what I'm going to go ahead and do? I'm not going to go ahead and approve this, but rather than rejecting it like we used to in the past, I can now just go ahead and highlight this one and go ahead and reassign that approval and go ahead and send that over to Maxwell Baker or somebody else that might have some information on this process. So now once I've reassigned that, it now takes this out of my active approvals. Oops, I'm sorry about that. Go ahead and refresh the screen here. I gotta log in again. Sorry about that. Wow, all right. That's giving me some trouble, but it's no longer an active approval in my case here. And now if I log back in as my admin and I go to my approval screen, I should be able to now see, wow, I just totally broke it. Sorry about that. Now we can actually go ahead and send that over to Maxwell and get that reassigned. So it's definitely a new tool that is super exciting. People have been asking about this for a long time, but now we actually do have that capability to reassign approvals. The last thing that I want to touch base on from a CRM perspective is kind of been a pain in our existence from a CRM perspective. And so if I am going, if I'm a salesperson, I'm going to go over here into my log in as Jason Mendahal, who is our salesperson, and I have an opportunity. And this opportunity has been won, and this this account is still a prospect. Well, what we used to have to do is, in order to convert this opportunity into a business account, we used to have to go first into the business account, extend them as a customer, then go back to the opportunity and convert it to an order. Well, with 2023 R1, we no longer have to do that. If I am in the opportunity for a prospect and we have won this prospect, we can now go ahead and convert it to an order and create this customer at the same time. So if I'm looking at my opportunity list here and I see that I recently won an opportunity, but it was for a prospect, what we're going to actually do here now is we're going to take that opportunity. So this is an opportunity that I've been working on new laptops. And so I sold this company. And now when I go to the actions menu to create the sales order, we now have a new feature at the bottom to go ahead and extend that business account or that prospect to a new customer at the same time. So now I can just go ahead and hit create and review, and Acumatica will automatically take this opportunity, create the sales order, as well as extending the business account to a customer all simultaneously, reducing the amount of steps that it actually takes to go from an opportunity to a sales order. So this is what I think is great from the kind of the CRM approval workflow updates, some changes to our activity management and collaboration tools. Some things that we didn't mention here with collaboration as well. In 2023 R1, Acumatica has officially launched their Teams integration to Microsoft Teams, so you can actually interact with teammates and have those Teams messages automatically attached to activities. So a lot of new feature sets that have been done on kind of our back-end CRM and approval maps. All right. Any questions on that? Did we get any on that?
Just to add one thing to one of the things that you talked about already, Chris, with the delegation of things like approvals and doing those approval maps. And, you know, I mean, one thing that we hear from a lot of the clients, you know, especially those already currently using approval maps is, hey, you know, our CFO normally approves these types of documents in the system and he's going to be away. So can you redo our map so that during a particular time period while he's out of the country or traveling, you know, can those all be rerouted to someone else? So with those reassignments, you do have the ability now to go into the employee record and set delegations and say, okay, you know, Michael Andrews is going to be away, so we're going to set a delegate for Michael Andrews for a particular time frame, and all of his approvals are going to go elsewhere. So those are things that you can do now with some of these changes that they've made to the approval maps. The other thing also is that ability to be able to reassign an approval to go to someone else is an option on the approval map itself. So, you know, if that is something where, no, we never want to allow people to reassign things, you can set that at the approval map as well. Just to
Thanks, Nicole.
add to some of your things.
No questions just yet, but again, everyone, feel free to use either the chat or the questions, or email it to me if you have something that pops up and you'd like to further get explanation on. Thanks, Chris.
And no problem. All right. So a couple of other things. Let's jump into some updates that I found exciting with inventory and order management. Number one, we have seen the rise in e-commerce orders coming into Acumatica, right? So as the rise of e-commerce and the omni-channel is growing, what we do a lot of the times on those particular orders is tax is calculated on those e-commerce platforms like Shopify, BigCommerce, Amazon. Tax is always calculated over there. Well, in the past, in Acumatica, when we generated invoices for those types of orders that have been brought in from e-commerce, our routine was always set to recalculate the tax on the invoices form. But a lot of those times that may or may not be a couple of cents off or what have you with your e-commerce platform. So now in 2023 R1, based on the order type, we have now been able to disable the tax calculation if we need to, right? So in this case here, if we are bringing orders in from external sources and they have their own tax calculator, if we want Acumatica to preserve that and not try to recalculate it because you have things like Avalara or Vertex in your system, or you have maybe some taxes already manually set up, tax zones, well, we can now disable that automatic tax calculation, and Acumatica will now retain whatever tax was integrated from your external system. So no more having 1 or 2 cents off and having to write off those particular payments because maybe they paid too much, or then maybe trying to go after a client for still owing you 2 cents. So that's a huge option that has been added to Acumatica in 2023 R1. The second thing that I think is really exciting is for a lot of our customers that are using Acumatica in a retail environment. So in Acumatica in the past, if a customer came into your retail store and said, hey, Chris, I need to return this and buy something else. A retail clerk had to know whether or not the resulting net change was going to be a credit or something where the customer owed money. And so that determined that, I'm either going to start this transaction off as a CM credit memo order or start this order off as an IN order, because in the past, we could not have negative balances on a sales order, or we couldn't have positive balances on a credit memo. Well, as of 2023 R1, Acumatica has introduced what we call mixed orders. And in this scenario, we do not care what the net result of that order is going to be. So let's take a look and take a test drive in creating a mixed order. Let me go ahead and refresh my page here. So if I go ahead and come in, and so, let's say this customer comes in and they've got to purchase items and they need to return some items. Well, now in our case here, I could just go ahead and create a new mixed order. And I'm using the MO order type for this. And I'm just going to go ahead and use my Icicle Brewing Company. And so in this case here, when I go in and put the inventory item, let's say they need to return one of these Acer laptops. Well, what I can do now is I can go into the quantity, type in a -1 because they are returning this to me. And you'll see that the operation over here changes to a receipt. So now we're telling Acumatica, hey, they're returning this. And now we owe them $500. I can save this here. And then if I went to the payments tab, I can now generate a refund directly from the sales order screen. But hey, they found some other products that they wanted to get, and you know what? They decided they wanted to go ahead and pick up that Canon camera, or maybe we don't have a camera anymore. Here, this Nikon camera. And in this case here, they're going to go ahead and pick up one of these. And then, so with the new sales price, we'll still owe them $240, which now means that in this case here, we still have the option to generate a refund for the balance. Now, what happens if they decide to buy 3 of those cameras? And now they owe us $280. Well, in this particular scenario now, if I go back to the payments tab, now my create payment functionality is open. So now we don't have to worry about whether or not we have a negative balance at the end or a positive balance at the end. Acumatica, utilizing the mixed order functionality, will allow the system to decide and help your users figure that out. So at this point in time, I think this is a huge offering. Again, we've had customers asking for this in the past, and Acumatica has introduced that in 2023 R1.
I wish we had sound effects for this part to insert the clapping, because hopefully we have some distribution people watching this right now who will kind of understand how great this is, but it really will save a lot of time with order processing.
Absolutely. The last thing I want to show you from a kind of inventory order management enhancement really is from our purchasing standpoint. For those of you that use blanket order purchase orders, the frustration of not knowing how much we've actually issued off of that blanket PO, having to create custom reports so that users can figure that out, it's been a nightmare for us. So in the past, we couldn't track the actual quantity of items received in a PO of the blanket type when we're looking at the purchase order. We would have to go to each particular child order. Well, now in 2023 R1, if we take a look at our blanket POs, we now can see our order quantity, our quantity on orders. We now can see our blankets open quantity and what's been on receipt from those child orders. So again, just adding this functionality to make things easier for our clients to be able to access that data without having to go to another report or have another report made. All right, any questions on the inventory order management or any just general questions so far?
I just must be awestruck and speechless. But yeah, thanks for pausing again. And again, everyone, this is interactive if only you use our tools. So hopefully you're saving them all up for the end.
Absolutely. All right, well, so for our manufacturing customers out there, let's talk about some of the changes that Acumatica has made on the manufacturing side. So let me close out some of these guys here. And, one of the things that we used to do in the past is if I was in a production order, if I wanted to see the details of the production order, well, I had to click this production detail button. Oops. I guess I should really refresh my screens when I get in there. Yeah, go ahead and grab this here. So again, we used to have to go to the production detail. I had to see, what my steps are, where I'm at, did I complete that step or not? Have I released my material? If I needed to figure out if I had enough material, I used to have to go to my critical materials report, right here. I had to do a lot of things by accessing another screen. Well, now with 2023 R1, if I wanted to go ahead and let's see if I'm going to make some of my Keurig coffee makers. And let's see if I need to make 100 of these things. Well, now Acumatica has started to introduce new side panels to the production order screen. And there are many new screens in manufacturing that have now introduced these side panels. So now instead of having to go to the production order detail, I could just activate the side panel so that I can pull open my production order details. So now I can see this in a more split screen perspective. If I need to see, do I have enough material to make this? Well, I can just flip to my critical materials. And so now I could see those critical materials. So now, again, I don't have to go to another screen, and I can actually, if there was a shortage, I can then go ahead and opt to purchase or manufacture any sub-assemblies directly from the side panel. But also with our, let's say something is completed, right? So if I go into one of my completed production orders, well, maybe I need to take a look at some MRP results for this item. Do I have any, need for this right now? How was my production analysis? So now we have production analysis reports that are attached. So I can see the performance by operation for this one particular production order. I can look at production order supply documents. Where is this production order needed for? So there's a lot of things that we could do here, and with integrations between projects and production order, I can track that information. So with our manufacturing edition, we have added these side panels all over the place, just again, to make it easier to get data regarding your productions or anything that you are looking for in our manufacturing suite. Any questions on manufacturing?
Not just yet.
All right. Last thing that you want to hear, you're going to hear from me. We're going to talk about some, again, some modules got some full-fledged features added, and of course there were features added to manufacturing and so forth. But I wanted to take the time, and the things that kind of impressed me and got me excited, from the manufacturing thing was the side panels, because this was, a lot of clicks in the past that I had to show to get us to these screens. Well, with our projects module and our construction module, we've done also some of the same things. We have added, numerous reports and modified and made better a lot of the reports that were already there. So if we take a look here within, our Acumatica system here, we have introduced an updated project progress report. And these progress reports are based off released worksheets now. So we can create progress worksheets, put the tasks that we worked on, what we actually completed in that time frame, and now we're able to run a project progress report from within Acumatica. So on a project by project basis, I can see where we're at and what we've done within this particular project. We've also updated the look and feel of the project balance detailed report. So it's just a lot cleaner, a lot less squished together. We've updated the project transaction detail screen to provide additional information, and again, just kind of cleaning it up so that we can dictate between all and just cost records. Again, just making it easier to get the information that your company needs. So there are a lot of reports. The project summary has been updated as well. If I need to look at specifically, wow, I really need to have refreshed all of these pages here. If I wanted to look at a particular project manager, I can look at that here. See if I have a project manager. Nope. Just look at who's maybe some of them that I'm working on. I could look at project summaries. So Acumatica has gone through a lot of these different modules on the construction and project accounting side to really kind of revamp the look and feel of some of these reports, making it, being able to get more information, being able to give users the ability to filter these reports a lot easier on the fly. With that, I think you guys are tired of hearing from me. So let's turn it back to Nicole, and she'll talk about some other features that got her really happy with Acumatica's 2023 release.
Thanks, Chris.
No problemo.
Make sure I have the right, you're probably seeing a blank desktop. Okay. Can everyone see my Acumatica screen? Can Chris maybe confirm? Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, so I'm gonna, like Chris said, I'm gonna go over a few of the features that I'm really excited about, and some that are just general things that are out there that I want to make sure that everyone's aware of to keep an eye out for, just some nice different things. So as I mentioned earlier, there are improvements to ACH. And if you are someone who is using like a standard, what we call Nacha ACH format, Acumatica has improved that functionality, where previously we would need to, on a payment method, define an export scenario and then create an export scenario that was tied to that payment method in order to generate the ACH file. They've added a new feature. Oh, look, I'm doing the same thing Chris did. I'm not sure why, because I was refreshing before. So if I go into my payment methods and look at one that's been set up that's new, if I look here, I do have a new ability to look at an export method of US ACH plugin. The nice thing about this is really this screen right here, which gives us the ability to kind of go in and set some of that different information that needs to be passed through to the file records for the ACH processing. It also makes it easier to do things like including an addenda record if your bank requires an addenda record, which was previously a little bit difficult to accomplish and either required, you know, some manipulation on our part or possibly an ISV solution. They've really kind of made improvements here to make it easier to create ACH files in that standard Nacha format. So that's one thing that we're very excited about. One of the other things as well, which I'm not necessarily going to show an Acumatica screen for this, I'm going to reference that very large document of the release notes, which, as I mentioned before, is probably a 260-page document. But Acumatica has added a number of predefined user security roles. So previously, Acumatica did offer a fair amount of these roles, which were primarily finance associated, AP, AR, and if you guys needed additional roles for sales order and purchase orders and things like that, it would require us to construct them, or you know, current Acumatica clients to define how exactly they wanted those roles to work. Whereas now Acumatica has added quite a few predefined roles for sales order related functions like sales order admin, sales order manager, PO, and also inventory. So it makes it a lot easier for us and for you to kind of define some of these roles, because they have these templated roles that they'll now be including in the package. So that's something that's not as flashy and exciting as some of the things that Chris showed, but is a nice thing that they've added those predefined roles, again, just sort of making things easier for people to use. Another thing that I like that they've added is the tooltips. I mentioned that a little bit earlier at the start. The tooltips you'll notice in various different areas where if you're hovering over a particular field or an option and you're not necessarily sure what that means. Previously, I think that you could go up to the help and you could search through the help and find different things and maybe look at the form reference or sift through these different articles. Now when you hover, you'll see that question mark and you can click on, like, let's say I'm monkeying around with my sales order preferences and I don't understand what advanced availability validation is. If I see that question mark, I can hover over it, click it, and it'll give you information as to what that particular field is for. You'll also notice that when you're in different grids as well. So if I'm entering a sales order and I don't know what the field warehouse means, I will see that when I click that column heading, I can click on that tooltip and see information about that particular field. So if you're someone who's advanced with Acumatica, that might not be super useful to you, but if you're new and you're still learning, or you have a new employee, it's good to like keep an eye out in the new version for those little tooltips, because those are useful to people. Let's see what else we have here. An additional thing that I wanted to mention as well is they have renamed document types in accounts payable and accounts receivable. The changes in accounts receivable are very minor. They did rename certain documents, like a customer refund is now just called a refund. So that's not very substantial. But within accounts payable, they did rename a lot of different things. So checks are no longer called checks in accounts payable. They're now called payments. And additionally, they did also rename quick checks to a field called screen called cash purchases. Not necessarily exactly sure why they renamed them in that manner, but definitely something to keep an eye out for if you're in the process of upgrading or considering upgrading, to make sure that AP is really learning and aware of some of those changes. One of the other things that I'm actually very excited about, which is a small thing as well, is in our security preferences. Previously, users, there's a timeout period when it comes to Acumatica. And previously, if you wanted that timeout changed, so if I as a user am inactive for a certain period of time, you get logged out of the system. That timeout value is something that previously you would have to request us to have that change made, and we would coordinate with Acumatica SaaS support to make that change at the web level. Now they've actually given everyone a ability to make those changes as far as the inactivity timeout directly from the security preferences. So if I wanted to change that timeout value, I could uncheck this box and make the change as to what I want the timeout hours to be. So that's a really nice thing that they've added as well to the system. I think that's all that I have. Did we have any other questions?
Unfortunately, everyone has just been speechless, blown away by what they're seeing here. Or perhaps a little shy. Again, like, we're your DSD team. Hopefully you're familiar with us, and we have the confidence to just talk candidly about what you're seeing, or even asking questions about what you'd like to see. Oh, I think I just saw a couple come through. Awesome. So Carmen asks, were we told there was an option to move around headers and etc.?
Headers, like from screen columns?
I'm not sure. Does that sound like the only spot where headers would be? I can ask for more details. From the detail lines up to the header section.
Oh, no, so there's some experimental features that they demonstrated at Acumatica Summit, but at this time, yeah, I don't believe we can pull headers from the details to the header, to the summary section.
I see. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question, Carmen. Let's see. Any other areas you want to kind of touch on with this extra time we have, as people kind of gain their confidence in our ability to answer their questions?
I mean, for me, I just, like like Nicole and I mentioned, there's so many new features in 2023 R1. Many of our customers are on what Acumatica calls the always current program. So if you want to try to get ahead of this, because you're going to get automatically brought up to 2023 R1 soon, if you want to get ahead of it, let Nicole know. We can put together, especially if you're on a DSD service level agreement, we can help coordinate a sandbox for your team so that we can get you testing all of the new features and how it impacts your business. So, those are definitely things that you want to get ahead of, and we can get you set up so that you can test all of these new features out.
Yeah, and I would say too that, it's always good, even if you're not on the always current program, to stay up to date with the latest releases. So, even if you're thinking, oh, this 23R1 stuff really looks great, but I don't know if we, are ready to upgrade right now, still just consider reaching out to me to, discuss when is a good time to schedule that. Or how we can get that in the works to start planning those so that your staff can be up to date with the changes and go through the testing process, especially if you have things like customizations or custom processes. It's always good to kind of get out in front of those things and get it planned out and make sure that everyone is up to speed on what some of the new features and changes will look like. So, or even if you just want to have a conversation around some of the different features that we might have mentioned today, like Chris said, maybe you're not currently using something like ACH or CRM. Maybe you just want to hear more about, hey, like we don't use tasks and I know tasks are there. How do we go about getting a training session on how to better utilize those, so feel free to reach out on any of those topics, and we can kind of take a look at what you might be able to utilize even in your current version,